Welcome to the Love Story with Lisa channel. Today, we're bringing you a brand new story. Summer had to grip the doorknob tightly to stop her legs from going weak. There was one more thing she wanted to confirm, so right now. You're the one pursuing me? After asking that question, she suddenly felt like she had regained the upper hand. Adrian Liu froze for a moment. At last, he seemed to understand the occasionally puzzling attitude she had been showing, so she wanted him to take the initiative. He looked at her with a half-smile. If you want to be lazy, I can do the work instead. 3 minutes later, Summer collapsed onto the sofa, rolled around twice, and buried her face into a pillow. No matter how much she rubbed her face, she still couldn't calm down. Daisy Tang's phone call came at exactly the right moment. The moment Summer answered, she wailed, "I'm doomed." Daisy Tang thought she was talking about the hot search and immediately comforted her. "It's fine. I saw that you gained another 100,000 followers. That's a good thing. Did Jason Zhou and his girlfriend come bother you? Someone even asked me whether he really cheated. Everyone's gossiping about it. I'm not talking about that. Summer, you didn't want to hear Jason Zhou's name right now. It completely ruined the atmosphere. Then what are you talking about?" Summer took several deep breaths before finally calming down enough to recount everything that had happened. After hearing the whole story, Daisy Tang suddenly understood. "So what you mean is, you're doomed because you're about to fall in love? Or do you want to tell me what Jason Zhou did? I'm worried he'll cause trouble for me." Summer quickly tried to redirect the topic so she could calm herself down. "Forget it. Don't mention him anymore. With me around, I won't let him spread nonsense." Daisy Tang sounded very supportive. "Just focus on dating your handsome neighbor." After hanging up, Summer opened Weibo and scrolled for a while. After thinking for a moment, she decided to post something. The general idea of the post was that the story was completely fictional and not meant as advice on how to pursue love. She warned everyone to be careful about trying to copy it. If someone ended up heartbroken because of it, she wouldn't take responsibility. That should be fine now. Right? It wasn't that she wanted to clarify things for Jason Zhou. In a few days, she would be attending a comic exhibition. She was worried that suddenly becoming famous might lead people to dig deeper. If they dragged Adrian Liu into it, that would be awkward. The next day was the weekend. Adrian Liu asked whether she wanted to come over for dinner. Summer felt that she had only just managed to gain the upper hand, so she needed to stay reserved. Reluctantly, she refused, perhaps because her heart was so restless. As a comic artist, she could usually stay inside for half a month straight just to finish a draft. Yet that day, she spent the entire time wanting to go outside. Despite her sprained ankle, on Monday evening, Adrian Liu worked overtime for a while before leaving work. Out of habit, he opened WeChat Moments. Sure enough, Summer who posted every day, had just updated again. "Living in spring. I want to go out. I want to go downstairs. When will this useless leg of mine finally recover so I can walk and run again? I'm going crazy." Her username had suddenly changed from "living in winter" to "living in spring." Adrian Liu couldn't help laughing when he saw it. He picked up his phone and called Victor Zhou. "Do you still have that wheelchair from before?" Last year, Victor Zhou had been in a traffic accident and broken his leg. He had used a wheelchair for 2 months. Victor Zhou blurted out, "Yeah, it's still in the company's storage room." "Why? What do you want it for?" Adrian Liu replied casually, "Nothing. I'll borrow it for a few days." Victor Zhou sounded confused. "You're not disabled and you're not crippled. Why do you need a wheelchair?" "For someone else. After saying that, Adrian Liu hung up. He grabbed his car keys from the desk, went to the company storage room, retrieved the wheelchair, placed it in the trunk, and drove home. Summer Yu had just finished dinner when she heard someone knock on the door. Her heart skipped a beat. Her intuition told her it was Adrian Liu. She quickly fixed her clothes and hair before limping to open the door. The moment the door opened, she froze. A wheelchair stood beside Adrian Liu's feet. Adrian Liu looked at her and smiled faintly. "Come on. I'll take you downstairs." In the end, Summer Yu still sat in the wheelchair. It was her first time ever sitting in one. By coincidence, it was exactly the time when everyone had finished dinner and came downstairs for a walk. The elderly people were practicing Tai Chi and dancing in the small square nearby. "You bought this wheelchair?" Summer Yu asked, restless as she sat there, looking around while enjoying the comfort of being pushed. "It belongs to a business partner," Adrian Liu said. He introduced Victor Zhua to her and briefly explained how he had gotten the wheelchair. "Next time we have the chance, we should treat him to a meal to thank him for the wheelchair." Summer Yu laughed. "All right." Adrian Liu's phone suddenly notified him of a new email. He pushed the wheelchair under a large tree and said, "I need to handle this email. It'll only take a few minutes." Summer Yu nodded. Summer Yu turned her gaze toward the small square where a group of elderly people were exercising. An old man walking past suddenly stopped. He turned his head and looked at her. "Isn't this little Summer? What happened to your leg? Why are you sitting in a wheelchair?" Summer Yu froze for a moment. The old man looked somewhat familiar, but the lighting beneath the tree was dim, and for a moment she couldn't remember who he was. "Oh. I sprained my ankle. I can't walk for now, so I'm using a wheelchair to come downstairs for a stroll." "Oh, I see. That's good, the old man said with a smile. "When your leg heals, come join the old folks and exercise with us when you have time. Young people like you hardly move these days." Summer Yu suddenly remembered, not long ago, when she had a day off, she had come downstairs for a walk and noticed a group of elderly people practicing Ba Duan Jin. On a whim, she had joined them. This old gentleman had noticed that her movements weren't quite correct and had demonstrated several times, patiently guiding her so she could perform the exercises properly. She didn't realize when Adrian Liu had already put away his phone. Standing behind her, he suddenly chuckled. "The first time I ever saw you, you were practicing Tai Chi with a group of old folks?" Summer Yu turned around in surprise. That morning, Adrian Liu had come to inspect the apartment. After all, he would be living here for more than half a year, so he wanted to take a look first. Because parking downstairs wasn't allowed for long periods, he had parked near the small square. Victor Zhua's aunt had simply given him the passcode to the apartment and told him to check it out himself. If he liked it, he could move in immediately. He had looked around the apartment and, after confirming he would move in, went to the property management office to register his license plate so he could enter the residential compound and parking lot conveniently. When he finished the procedures and came back, it was only 9:30 a.m. He opened the car door, leaned back into the seat, and called Victor Zhua. "I've finished registering the parking permit. I'll move in tomorrow. I'll treat your aunt to dinner sometime." "So soon?" Victor Zhua asked. "Then I'll come help you move tomorrow." "No need. I'll hire movers." At that moment, a girl wearing a light white jacket quietly walked past Adrian Liu's car. He glanced at her casually. Just then, the girl turned her head, and her gaze happened to sweep toward him. She had a smile on her face, bright and cheerful, even her eyebrows seemed to carry joy. He had no idea what she was so happy about. If he had to describe her expression at that moment, Adrian Liu thought it looked exactly like the expression high school girls had when they were happily discussing where to go during a long holiday. Because the car windows had one-way film, she couldn't see inside. Adrian Liu looked at her without the slightest restraint while continuing to talk business with Victor Joie. The girl stood near the front of his car. Sometimes she stretched her arms and straightened her back. Sometimes she swung her arms and kicked her legs. He had no idea what she was doing. Watching her was strangely amusing. He actually laughed. Victor Joie asked over the phone, "You sound pretty happy about moving. Has Nina Cheng stopped bothering you?" Nina Cheng was the niece of Adrian Liu's former landlord. Recently, she had been relentlessly pursuing him, which had been giving him a headache. At the mention of her name, Adrian Liu frowned. He picked up the cigarette box from the center console and lit one. "For now, she hasn't. I'm hanging up. We'll talk later." After ending the call, he looked up again. The girl had already run toward the small square. The morning temperature was still a bit cool. After 9 o'clock, when the weather warmed slightly, the square became the liveliest. A group of retired elderly people were practicing Tai Chi there. The girl walked behind them and began copying their movements, blending into the group. Among all those elderly people, she looked like a sunflower blooming in a bouquet of withered yellow flowers. Young, energetic, adorable. Her radiant smile was dazzlingly beautiful. She stood out completely. Adrian Liu lowered the car window, flicked away the ash from his cigarette, and couldn't help glancing toward her again. When the elderly people noticed her, they pushed her to the front. She showed no embarrassment at all. Instead, she practiced very seriously. Adrian Liu sat in the car, smoking 2 cigarettes and watching for nearly 10 minutes before finally driving away. "You saw me before?" Summer Yu had always thought that the night she mistakenly hugged him was the first time they met, but she never imagined he had already seen her practicing Ba Duan Jin with the elderly residents. Just recalling that scene made her feel incredibly embarrassed. Adrian Liu placed a hand on the wheelchair and lowered his gaze toward her, as if remembering that first meeting again. In the dim night, his eyes looked gentle and deep. "Judging from your WeChat posts, it was probably your second day of vacation." Summer Yu blinked in confusion. "Huh?" Curious about the expression on his face, she tilted her head 90 degrees and leaned it against his arm, studying his face. He lowered his head. The two of them formed a strangely intimate angle. Their eyes met. Under his steady gaze, her heart suddenly began beating faster. She hurriedly lowered her head and corrected him. "You're wrong. That wasn't Tai Chi, it's called Ba Duan Jin. Nowadays a lot of young people practice it. It's really good for the cervical spine and overall health. They say doing it twice a day can make both your body and mind feel refreshed." She suspected he thought she had started elderly activities early. She quickly pulled out her phone, opened Little Red Book, searched the keyword, then turned the screen toward him. "Look. It's really not just an old people exercise." Adrian Liu truly didn't know much about it. He lowered his eyes and glanced at her phone screen. Learned something new." Summer Yu took her phone back. Suddenly she didn't know what to say. After a long silence, she felt someone gently rub the top of her head. The man's low voice sounded above her. "Do you still want to keep strolling?" She thought for a moment. "Let's go around here once more and then head back." On the way back, Summer Yu sat in the wheelchair, holding her phone absent-mindedly. So the night she hugged the wrong person wasn't actually the first time they had met. In other words, it wasn't the first time Adrian Liu had seen her. He had already remembered what she looked like long before that night. She suddenly recalled joking with Daisy Tang once. She had once joked with Daisy Tang that perhaps Adrian Liu had fallen in love with her from that very first hug. But now, a bold Speculations suddenly rose in her heart. Could it be that this was actually a story of love at first sight? Had it really happened to her? Adrian Lu suddenly broke the silence. Did you have some prejudice against my profession before? Summer Yu was still lost in her own thoughts, doubting herself, and didn't hear him clearly at all. She blinked blankly. Huh? What did you say? Adrian Lu pushed the wheelchair into the building and repeated himself. Summer Yu took a deep breath. Actually, a little. Before, people always said that those in your field develop too quickly, and that people worry about being replaced. So I guess I did have some bias. She quickly added, but not anymore. As long as you don't cheat, don't break the law, and have a proper job, I think I'll probably like you. The elevator arrived at the first floor. Adrian Lu pushed her inside. In a low voice, he said, AI is only a tool. It can't completely replace humans at this stage, especially artists who are already highly skilled. He paused for a moment before continuing. I've seen your drawings. You have to believe that no matter who it is, you can't be replaced. Summer Yu loved her profession deeply, but she had never thought that there was anything in this world that couldn't be replaced. This was the first time anyone had told her that she was irreplaceable. She raised a hand and rubbed her face, sighing dramatically. If you keep saying things like that, my ego is going to inflate. And I might even grow a love-struck brain. If this keeps going, I might fall for you completely in just a few days. When they reached her apartment door, Adrian Lu pushed the wheelchair inside. He stood outside and casually glanced around her home. Keep the wheelchair here. If I get home early tomorrow night, I'll take you out. Weren't they supposed to be preparing to date? But since she couldn't walk, staying trapped between four walls every day really was depressing. Summer Yu muttered, I want to go watch a movie. Suddenly, the wheelchair was turned halfway around. The man held the armrest and crouched down in front of her. After an entire evening, their eyes were finally at the same level. The distance between them suddenly shortened. The man's handsome face was right in front of her. Summer Yu's heart pounded violently. She stared at him without blinking, asking nervously, what's wrong? Adrian Lu's gaze moved from her face down to her right foot. She was wearing white socks and fluffy slippers. She had been dressed like that for days. Don't look, Summer Yu said quickly, pulling her foot back. I think in 2 or 3 days I'll be able to walk slowly again. If you want to go now, we can go. Adrian Lu kept his half-crouched posture and looked up at her. Go watch a movie in a wheelchair? Summer Yu shook her head immediately. Better wait. Adrian Lu watched her silently for a few seconds before finally standing up again. In a lazy tone, he said, then we'll go when you can walk. Summer Yu looked up at him. Does that count as a date? The man raised an eyebrow. What else would you call it? Adrian Lu had promised to take Summer Yu downstairs for a walk, but heaven had other plans. It rained continuously for 3 days. On top of that, he had social dinners those nights and returned home late. Gradually, Summer Yu's restless heart calmed down. She focused on recovering her ankle and diligently worked on her drawings while waiting for their date. Her editor noticed that she had changed her username to Living in Spring. The editor teased her. Looks like you've been working hard on saving up drafts lately. You've gone from winter to spring. Keep working hard and soon you'll return to summer. Summer Yu awkwardly explained that she had changed her name simply because spring had arrived. All living things longed for spring, and she was about to start dating. The comic exhibition was scheduled for Sunday that week. Her editor would accompany her. The two of them had already agreed that after attending the event, they would stay nearby and have fun for 2 days. Her editor asked, How's your ankle? Will you be able to walk during the exhibition? Living in summer, Summer Yu replied, these past few days I can already walk slowly. By the time the exhibition arrives, as long as I don't run or jump, should be able to walk normally. Good, her editor said, remember to pack your things in advance. And don't be lazy. Stockpile your drafts, or next month when it's time for publication I'll make you go bald and send you back to the Arctic. Summer Yu raised a hand and ran it through her hair. Sorry. I was born with too much hair. Going bald won't be easy. At that moment, a message appeared on her screen. Adrian Lu wants some late-night snacks. Actually, Summer Yu didn't have the habit of eating late-night meals, but she did want to see him, so she replied, I'll eat. After a brief hesitation, Adrian Lu leaned lazily against the sofa in the private room. Victor Joie and the assistant had just stepped out to escort the clients. Adrian Lu lowered his head and texted her. When Victor Joie returned after seeing the clients off, he glanced down at Adrian Lu's phone and looked surprised. Who are you bringing late-night food to? Adrian Lu pushed him aside and continued typing. Seafood porridge okay? Living in spring, okay. Are you dating someone? Victor Joie asked, sitting down beside him. Suddenly something occurred to him. He slapped his hand on his thigh. Wait. Is it your new neighbor? The wheelchair was for her, wasn't it? Adrian Lu scanned the QR code on the table and ordered one portion of seafood porridge and 2 side dishes. Only after placing the order did he lift his head and glance at Victor Joie. Not dating yet. Victor Joie raised an eyebrow. Then what? Adrian Lu answered calmly, I'm pursuing her. Victor Joie was stunned for a long moment. Then he slowly narrowed his eyes. I've known you for so many years, Victor Joie said slowly. This is the first time I've ever seen you actually pursue a girl. I'm really curious what kind of girl she is. Adrian Lu clearly didn't want to share much. In an indifferent tone, he said, you'll meet her someday if there's a chance. By the time Adrian Lu returned home from the company, it was already close to midnight. With his suit jacket draped over his arm and the late-night food in his hand, he stepped out of the elevator. Before he even reached his door, he heard a click. Summer Yu was standing behind her door, peeking her head out to look at him. Adrian Lu paused for a moment, then walked over to her. Have you been waiting long? Not that long, Summer Yu said with a smile, but in truth, she had been thinking about him the whole time, which had seriously affected her work efficiency. Adrian Lu didn't hand her the food immediately. Instead, he said slowly, aren't you going to invite me in? I'll eat with you and then go back. Summer Yu pressed her lips together, then opened the door wider. My place doesn't have men's slippers. You should go back and get yours. Adrian Lu raised an eyebrow. He turned around, opened his own door, took out a brand new pair of slippers from the shoe cabinet, and came right back. He didn't even put down his suit jacket. The entire process took less than 30 seconds. A moment ago, Summer Yu had thought she might end up eating the late-night meal alone. She had even cleaned the house specially just in case. Now that he was really inside, the two of them stood in the entryway, so close that she could smell the faint scent of alcohol on him. You drank alcohol? She asked nervously. Adrian Lu immediately sensed the tension in her voice. As if he understood what she was thinking, he lowered his gaze to meet hers. His eyes were deep, clear, and perfectly sober. I'm not drunk. I'm very clear-headed. Summer Yu caught the meaning behind his words and explained quietly, it's not that I'm afraid of you being drunk. She paused, then she looked up at him honestly. All right. I am a little scared. I don't know if you do something improper when you're drunk. Adrian Lu replied calmly, "I've never really been drunk. Even when I drink, I still keep a bit of clarity." He walked into her living room and glanced around. Her apartment was filled with figures and dolls, perfectly matching the identity and hobbies of a 2D comic artist like her. He placed the late-night food on the coffee table. Only then did he notice that her sofa carpet was white. He paused and looked up at her. "I should go home and change clothes first." He had been too eager to see her. Only now did Adrian Lu realize it might not have been appropriate to come over smelling of alcohol and cigarettes. Summer Yu froze for a moment before quickly understanding. There's no need. She walked over, lifted the white sofa carpet, and looked up at him with a smile. "There. Problem solved. You really don't mind?" Adrian Lu asked seriously, watching her. "If it were someone else, maybe I would. But with you, it's fine." Summer Yu walked toward him. They stood in the open space between the sofa and the coffee table. She gently leaned her head against his chest and softly inhaled. The smell of alcohol and cigarettes wasn't very strong. The bitter woody fragrance of his perfume was even more noticeable. She whispered, "Actually, the smell isn't that strong. I can still smell the woody scent." She was standing so close that Adrian Lu could smell the faint fragrance of her body without even lowering his head. His throat moved slightly. He lowered his head and whispered the name of the perfume into her ear in English. His English pronunciation was smooth and perfectly pleasing to the ear. Summer Yu felt a ticklish sensation. Half her body went numb. She didn't react in time and looked up at him blankly. "What?" "The perfume name." He lowered his eyes to look at her meaningfully. "Didn't you say you wanted to give it to your next boyfriend?" "Well, now I've told you." Summer Yu froze. Her mind went blank. Her heart pounded violently, and even her breathing grew faster. "I don't remember it. Can you write it down for me?" "Sure." Adrian Lu saw that the moment felt about right and stopped there with restraint. He sat down on the sofa and opened the bag to arrange the late-night food. "Eat first." Summer Yu sat beside him and asked softly, "Aren't you eating?" Adrian Lu broke apart a pair of disposable chopsticks and handed one to her. "I'll eat a little with you." Summer Yu accepted them. She picked up the remote control from the coffee table and turned on the TV. She needed some noise in the room, otherwise, the ambiguous atmosphere filling the apartment made it hard for her to breathe normally. The television was playing a lively variety show, but her mind wasn't paying attention to it at all. After taking a few spoonfuls of porridge, she spoke slowly. "On Friday I'm going to Guangzhou to attend a comic exhibition. After it ends over the weekend, I'll go sightseeing with my colleague. I won't be back for 2 days." What she meant was, if Adrian Lu wasn't free during the next 2 days, their date would have to be postponed. Adrian Lu tilted his head and looked at her helplessly. "I have to go on a business trip tomorrow." Summer Yu was stunned. "When will you come back?" "The original plan is 2 days. I'll be back on Saturday." Summer Yu hummed softly. "Then you'll have to suffer a little and wait for me 2 more days. I already promised my colleague I'd go sightseeing, so I can't break my word." Adrian Lu laughed. "It's fine. Go enjoy yourself." Half an hour later, Adrian Lu kept his promise. After finishing the late-night meal with her, he left. Before leaving, he also wrote the name of the perfume on a piece of paper. His handwriting was strong and elegant. Summer Yu held the paper and smiled foolishly for several seconds. She took out her phone, snapped a photo of it, then tucked the paper into her favorite album for safekeeping. On Friday afternoon, Summer Yu and her editor Clara arrived in Guangzhou. The two of them had dinner at a shopping mall near the hotel. Afterward, Summer Yu went straight to a perfume counter on the first floor. a sales assistant enthusiastically approached to introduce the products. Summer, you simply said a name. Do you have this one? Yes, we do, the sales assistant replied with a smile. This men's fragrance is quite unique. The top note has a slightly bitter scent. Before the assistant could finish speaking, Clara grabbed Summer Yu's head and pulled her close, whispering, "Why are you buying a men's perfume? Didn't your ex-boyfriend cheat on you? Are you and your neighbor really together, like your fans predicted?" Summer Yu frowned. "Don't put it like that." Summer Yu smiled at the sales assistant. "I'll take this one." The two women walked out of the store. Summer Yu took the initiative to confess, "It's a gift for my new boyfriend." "New boyfriend?" Clara repeated. "That sounds a bit strange." Summer Yu corrected her seriously. "It's a gift for my boyfriend." Clara had worked with her for more than 3 years. From the earliest chapters of her comic until now, when the story was almost finished, they had become very close. "So, that neighbor of yours," Clara asked curiously, "is he really handsome?" Summer Yu smiled proudly. "Of course. You got out of being single so easily," Clara sighed. "No wonder so many pretty girls started copying your accidentally hugging the male god method." After chatting for a while, Clara suddenly remembered something. "You haven't continued that comic, have you?" "Really? Your fans will definitely ask about it tomorrow." Summer Yu had stopped updating because she was afraid people would dig too deeply into her personal life. But it really was difficult to explain to the fans. "Let me think about it," she said. That night, after returning to the hotel, Summer Yu lay on the bed with a facial mask on, texting Adrian Liu. Clara was sharing the room with her. They had booked a double room, and at that moment Clara was also lying on the bed wearing a facial mask while video calling her boyfriend. "Spring Living, Summer Yu, I'm back at the hotel and getting ready to sleep. What about you?" Adrian Liu loosened his tie and sat on the edge of his bed. He sent a voice message. "I just got home. Is it convenient to do a video call?" Summer Yu glanced at Clara, who was still on her video call. She lowered her head and typed, "Spring Living, I'm sharing a room with my editor." She's video calling her boyfriend. "I'll go into the bathroom." Touching the mask on her face, Summer Yu got off the bed while typing. She planned to wash her face before making the video call. "Summer Living, Adrian Liu, wait for me 3 minutes." Adrian Liu's fingers paused. Then he sent another voice message. "If it's inconvenient, we can talk tomorrow night instead." He didn't tell her that he had already bought a plane ticket to Guangzhou for tomorrow noon. It was meant to be a surprise. If he told her in advance, it wouldn't be a surprise anymore. Summer Yu didn't catch the hidden meaning in his words. She sat back down. "Spring Living, all right then. Good night." Summer Living, good night. The comic exhibition that year was extremely crowded. Summer Yu attended mainly to sign autographs, and her time slot was arranged for the afternoon. Every year she attended at least one comic exhibition, but when she saw the endless line of people waiting in front of her, she felt confused. Why are there so many people this year? Clara leaned closer and whispered in her ear, "I heard that your comic actually helped a few girls successfully win over their male gods on Weibo. Some of them even said they would bring their boyfriends to the exhibition to get your autograph and thank you for being their matchmaker. Are male gods really that easy to chase nowadays?" Summer Yu muttered in disbelief. "This is insane." Clara laughed. "You bravely escaped being single yourself, didn't you?" Summer Yu raised her head and looked at the people waiting in line. She really did notice a few couples. She fell into thought. Fortunately, only one couple actually came up to thank her as their matchmaker. The girl blushed and introduced her boyfriend to Summer Yu generously. The boy looked a little nervous, even his ears had turned red. But it seemed that he was no longer embarrassed about being the one who had been captured by the girl. Summer Yu felt a complicated emotion. Still, she sincerely congratulated them. "I wish you both sweetness and happiness forever." The girl happily held her boyfriend's arm. "Madame Sancha, could we take a photo together?" "Of course." Summer Yu walked out from behind the table and took a picture with them. Holding up her phone expectantly, the girl asked, "Madame Sancha, will you continue that comic? I really want to know what happens next." When the others heard this, they also started asking. Summer Yu smiled. "I'll try to draw one more chapter. And then I'll end it." She had already made the decision last night. The entire afternoon, Summer Yu stayed busy signing autographs and taking photos with readers. She had given her phone to Clara to hold, in case she missed an important call. Since so many readers had come, she didn't want anyone to leave disappointed. So she discussed with the organizers and extended the signing time a little longer. When Adrian Lu called, she was still signing autographs. Clara held the flashing phone screen in front of her. "Who is it? Are you answering?" Summer Yu paused. Yesterday she had told Adrian Lu what time the signing event would end. He probably thought she had already finished. Leaning close to Clara's ear, she whispered, "It's my boyfriend. Can you answer it for me? Just tell him I'll call him back later." Clara smiled and walked away to find a quiet place to answer the phone. Summer Yu didn't pay much attention afterward. She didn't even notice that Clara had walked quite far away. The venue had time limits, so the event couldn't be extended for too long. Only a few readers were left. Summer Yu lowered her head and continued signing. Suddenly she heard someone whisper in the crowd, "Oh, that man is so handsome." "Where?" "Right there in front, he's walking this way. And he's even carrying a suitcase." Summer Yu didn't pay attention. She didn't even lift her head. How handsome could he possibly be? She thought to herself. "There's no way he's more handsome than my boyfriend." In the next second, someone else said, "He's with Madame Sancha's editor. They must know each other." At that moment, a strong premonition rose in Summer Yu's heart. She turned her head. Adrian Lu had already followed Clara and walked into the area beside their private booth. Behind the booth, the backdrop displayed the male and female protagonists from Summer Yu's comic. Beside it stood a tall signboard almost the same height as the characters. Adrian Lu stood next to that signboard. The male lead on the poster wore a black shirt and dress pants, but Adrian Lu, tall and broad-shouldered, actually stood even taller than the display itself. The moment Summer Yu saw him, she could only stare in stunned silence. He had said he was on a business trip in Beijing, yet now, he had traveled thousands of miles just to come and see her. The overwhelming surprise left Summer Yu completely dazed. Her mind went blank. Her heart pounded wildly, completely out of control. Adrian Lu calmly pulled out the chair beside her and sat down. There was a faint smile in his eyes as he looked at her. Softly, he said 2 words, "Waiting for you." "Oh." The remaining readers nearby suddenly became excited. "Madame Sancha, is this your boyfriend?" Summer Yu's cheeks instantly burned red. She tried her best to suppress the smile tugging at the corners of her lips. Turning her head aside, she took a deep breath, but her racing heartbeat refused to calm down. Looking at the group of readers who were whispering and chattering excitedly, she didn't know how to answer. Embarrassed, she gave them an awkward smile. You guys can guess. It must be him. There's no way we're wrong." Everyone began whispering to one another. Summer Yu only smiled without saying anything. Lowering her head, she quickly signed the books in front of her. The words "I want to get off work already" were practically written all over her face. 10 minutes later, Summer Yu sent off the last reader. The autograph session finally ended. She quickly stood up and walked toward Adrian Lu. Adrian Lu stood up unhurriedly, the corners of his lips curving slightly. "Can we go now?" Summer Yu could no longer suppress the smile on her face. Tilting her chin up, she beamed brightly at him. "Why did you come here?" Adrian Lu answered honestly, "To see you." "Why didn't you tell me beforehand?" "If I told you, it wouldn't be a surprise anymore." Summer Yu felt as though her heart might actually break. Her heartbeat had been abnormally fast this whole time. Could it really keep going like this? She took a deep breath. It didn't help. She took several more breaths. Still useless. A powerful impulse suddenly surged inside her. She truly wanted to rush forward and hug him. Cough. Clara, the editor standing beside her, tugged her sleeve lightly. That small movement pulled Summer Yu back to her senses. Summer Yu glanced at Clara, then looked up at Adrian Lu again. Adrian Lu said, "Let's have dinner together. Thank you for helping guide me here earlier." It was currently rush hour, and trying to catch a taxi back would not be a wise decision, so the three of them found a good restaurant nearby. Ever since Adrian Lu appeared, Summer Yu had felt an overwhelming sense of unreality. She spoke much less than usual. After ordering the food, she turned to look at the man sitting beside her. Only then did things begin to feel a little more real. After thinking for a moment, Summer Yu asked quietly, "Are you staying tonight?" "Otherwise?" Adrian Lu asked in return, "Do you want me to leave?" Summer Yu hurriedly shook her head. I wanted to ask if you've already booked a hotel." Adrian Lu smiled. "I have. The same hotel as yours." Summer Yu froze. She looked at Clara sitting across from them, who was trying her best to reduce her presence so she wouldn't act like a third wheel. Clara cleared her throat. "He asked me earlier, so I told him." Summer Yu turned back to Adrian Lu. Thinking about the box of perfume waiting back in her hotel room, she suddenly felt eager to give it to him. She wanted to complete that small ritual, officially making him her boyfriend. Looking at him, she said, "Then after dinner, we'll go back together." After dinner, the three of them took a taxi. Clara voluntarily sat in the front passenger seat, while Adrian Lu and Summer Yu sat in the back. Adrian Lu was tall with long legs, so he had to spread his legs slightly. His knee nearly brushed against her thigh. Summer Yu's hand felt a little sore today. Subconsciously, she rubbed her wrist. Adrian Lu noticed and asked quietly, "Does your hand hurt?" Summer Yu gave a soft hum in response. Adrian Lu fell silent for 2 seconds. Then he reached out, took her hand, and pulled it gently toward himself. Summer Yu's heart skipped a beat. She turned her head to look at him. The man leaned lazily against the seat back, his gaze lowered slightly as he focused on her hand. His palm was large, his fingers were clean and slender. One hand held her wrist. The other carefully controlled the pressure as he massaged it. Summer Yu bit her lip and secretly watched him. Neither of them spoke, but their hands never separated. The taxi drove on for quite a while, and Adrian Lu kept massaging her hand the entire time. Clara had found it strange earlier. Why were the two of them completely silent? When they were almost at the hotel, she finally couldn't hold back her curiosity and turned around. Only then did she realize that Summer Yu's hand was still wrapped inside Adrian Lu's palm. He was gently rubbing her fingertips, almost as if they were a small toy he was playing with. No wonder. Clara quickly turned her head back around. Adrian Lu only released her hand after they got out of the taxi. Inside the hotel lobby, Adrian Liu was about to check in when Summer Yu lightly tugged on his sleeve. He turned around. Looking up at him with bright, shining eyes, she said, "I'll go upstairs first. Later, send me your room number. I'll come find you." She hesitated slightly. "I have a gift for you." Adrian Liu had already guessed what the gift was. Raising an eyebrow slightly, he replied, "All right." As soon as Summer Yu swiped her card and entered her room, she received a message from him. L1202. Clara had already gone upstairs earlier. She thought Summer Yu probably wouldn't return tonight, so when she saw Summer Yu walk in, she looked surprised. "Why did you come back?" "I came to get the perfume." "You're not coming back tonight, are you?" "Huh?" Summer Yu froze. They had only just confirmed their relationship, staying overnight in the same room already. Didn't that seem a little too fast? She hadn't expected things to progress so quickly. "I think I should come back," she said. Clara blinked in disbelief. "You two progressed at lightning speed, and you're still this innocent?" "I'll come back later." Summer Yu stuffed the box of perfume from the table into her bag and turned around to leave. She took the elevator upstairs. When she arrived at room 1202, she stopped at the door. She discovered that the door was half open. Adrian Liu was standing by the window with his back to her, talking on the phone. Summer Yu stepped inside quietly. Hearing the soft footsteps, Adrian Liu turned his head. He hadn't expected her to arrive so quickly. As he walked toward her, he spoke into the phone. "Let's leave it at that for now. I have something to take care of. I'll hang up first." Summer Yu stood in front of him, watching as he ended the call. But she still hadn't figured out how to start the conversation. Adrian Liu placed his phone on the TV cabinet and looked at her attentively. "Didn't you say you had a gift for me?" Her face turned red. Taking a deep breath, she slipped her hand into her bag, pulled out the box of perfume, and handed it to him. Looking up at him, she said softly, "A gift? From my boyfriend." Adrian Liu chuckled lightly. He accepted the box, glanced at it briefly, then placed it on the table beside him. After that, he turned and walked toward the door. Summer Yu didn't know why, but her gaze followed him. Click. Adrian Liu closed the door. Then he walked toward her step by step, lowering his head. He looked deeply into her eyes. "That boyfriend of yours traveled a long way just to see you. Shouldn't he get a hug? Like the first time?" Just like before, Summer Yu froze for a single second. Then she couldn't help but laugh. She wrapped her arms around him tightly, even tighter than the first time, looking up at him. Her cheeks were flushed. Her bright eyes were both lively and innocent. "Is this enough?" Adrian Liu lowered his gaze and stared at her face. Then his eyes slowly dropped to her soft lips. His voice turned low and hoarse. "Not enough." The next second, Summer Yu's vision darkened. The man wrapped one arm tightly around her waist, pulling her closer until she had to stand on tiptoe. His other hand cupped her cheek. Then he lowered his head and captured her lips. Summer Yu's mind went completely blank. Her entire body trembled as if struck by electricity. Her fingers instinctively clenched the fabric of his shirt. Adrian Liu held her and turned slightly, letting her lean back against the edge of the table. Reaching behind her, he took her hand and guided it forward, placing it against his chest. Then he lowered his head again and gently bit her lower lip. "Ah!" Summer Yu let out a soft sound. Instinctively, she parted her lips, and in that instant, he deepened the kiss. There was a huge height difference between them. When Summer Yu first tried to lower herself slightly, she suddenly found herself lifted onto the table. During the entire movement, their lips never separated. Instead, the man tilted her chin upward and kissed her even more deeply. Truthfully, for a first kiss, they probably should have restrained themselves a little. But love was something difficult to control. It was instinct. Summer Yu's tongue felt numb. Her breathing grew disordered. Her heart pounded wildly, almost as if it might burst out of her chest. She had never experienced such a fierce and powerful kiss before. It felt as though she was about to be completely swallowed. Their breaths intertwined together. Sensing that she was reaching her limit, Adrian Lu's intense kiss finally softened. He began kissing her lips again and again. Slow, gentle, lingering. This gradual, tender approach allowed Summer Yu to feel the warmth of his lips more clearly. She could also hear his uneven, slightly heavy breathing. Little by little, her own breathing stabilized beneath that soft, lingering kiss. Adrian Lu held her face in his hands. Finally, he lifted his head and looked down at her. Summer Yu's eyes were still tightly closed. Her cheeks were bright red. Her eyelashes trembled slightly as she buried her face against his chest. She truly didn't have the courage to lift her head and look at him. Adrian Lu's fingers gently brushed against her cheek. His voice was hoarse and deeply seductive. Still want to watch a movie? The moment Summer Yu spoke, she realized her voice had also become slightly hoarse. Taking a deep breath, she kept her head resting against his chest. What time is it? Adrian Lu raised his wrist and glanced at his watch. 9. If you're tired, then don't go. Summer Yu thought to herself that even if she had been tired before, that kiss had definitely woken her up completely. At last, she lifted her head from his chest. There's a cinema nearby. What do you want to watch? Adrian Lu was still holding her with one arm. With the other hand, he picked up the phone from the table and opened the ticket booking app. Summer Yu walked over and pointed at the screen. This one just came out not long ago. I've wanted to see it for a while. There happens to be a 9:30 showing. If we leave now, we'll make it in time. Adrian Lu booked the tickets. Then suddenly, he lifted her down from the table. Summer Yu's heart, which had just barely calmed down, immediately started racing again. Startled, she looked up, only to realize he was looking straight at her. Embarrassed, she lowered her head and whispered, "I'm going to the restroom. Wait for me a moment." Adrian Lu gave a quiet hum. Summer Yu walked into the bathroom, looking at herself in the mirror. Her flushed cheeks, her bright, dreamy eyes, and her slightly swollen lips. The embarrassment surged over her again. She quickly washed her face. Then she took her makeup bag from her purse and tidied herself up before finally walking out. When Adrian Lu saw her come out, he walked over to her side and naturally took her hand. "Let's go." Summer Yu glanced at their intertwined hands. The corners of her lips curved upward uncontrollably. The cinema was still very crowded. Most of the people there were couples. Adrian Lu placed a bag of popcorn into Summer Yu's arms. The two of them scanned their tickets and entered just as the movie was about to start. While advertisements were still playing on the screen, Summer Yu sent Clara a message. "I'm going to watch a movie. I'll be back around 12. Clara replied almost instantly, "If it's midnight, then don't bother coming back. Enjoy living in spring. Just don't lock the door." Inside the dim theater, Adrian Lu rested his elbow on the armrest and leaned slightly closer. By coincidence, he glanced at the screen of her phone. "Are you planning to stay here for a few days?" "Maybe 2 or 3 days, Summer Yu said. After sending the message, she placed her phone back into her bag. "I've been to Guangzhou several times before, so I've already visited many places. Mostly. I came because the comic will start printing in a few days. So I thought I'd take this chance to relax for 2 days." She lifted her head and looked at him, lowering her voice. She asked softly, "What about you?" Adrian Lu looked back at her. "I have to go back tomorrow." Tomorrow night there was a banquet he absolutely couldn't refuse, which meant that, counting both the trip here and the trip back, Adrian Liu would stay less than a full day. Out of that short time, only a few hours truly belonged to the two of them. Summer Yu felt that the time was painfully short. A faint disappointment crept into her heart. Tomorrow morning I still have another autograph session, she said softly. It probably won't finish until around 1. After that, I have to have lunch with the organizers and some artists I just met. Adrian Liu took her hand and placed it on his knee. Raising an eyebrow, he asked, "Should I take you to the signing tomorrow?" Summer Yu hesitated slightly. The main reason was simple. He was too eye-catching. Wherever he stood or sat, he attracted even more attention than the cosplayers at the comic exhibition. Adrian Liu looked at her. "Is it inconvenient?" "Not exactly." She blinked and said seriously, "You're just too noticeable. If you sit behind me, the readers who come up will definitely start whispering about you. That would affect my signing session." After thinking for a moment, Summer Yu added, "How about tomorrow you wear a mask?" Adrian Liu knew he was good-looking, but he wasn't a celebrity who needed to wear a mask when going outside. He sighed helplessly. "If you think it's necessary, I'll wear one." "The popularity of that comic is still pretty high," Summer Yu said softly. "And if suddenly there's a handsome guy sitting beside me, people will definitely start speculating." She lightly scratched his palm with her finger. "You wouldn't want people gossiping about you either, right? Sit still." Adrian Liu closed his fingers around her hand, stopping her from scratching him. "It's not that I don't want gossip. I just don't care about it." Summer Yu blinked and looked at their clasped hands. She couldn't help leaning closer and whispering, "You're really experienced." "In what way?" Adrian Liu tilted his head slightly. Their foreheads were almost touching. "In relationships," she murmured. "I'm very experienced with that," Adrian Liu replied calmly. Summer Yu muttered under her breath, "You're also way too natural about it. If we compare, I'm just a little chick." Even though she felt her heart flutter from being pursued by him, he seemed far too much like a seasoned expert in love. At that moment, the advertisements finished. The movie officially began. The lights in the theater dimmed even further. Their seats were quite far back, and there was no one sitting nearby. After a brief silence, Adrian Liu asked, "Otherwise what? You wanted to pursue me. But I still haven't seen much action from you." The man lowered his head and casually shifted his gaze toward the big screen. Being proactive and being experienced are not the same thing. "This is the first time I've pursued a girl." Hearing that, Summer Yu's heart suddenly stirred. She couldn't help lifting her head to look at him. Was it love at first sight? To be honest, Adrian Liu didn't know if it truly counted as love at first sight. But it was true that after seeing her that first time, he had never been able to forget her, and he was certain that even if the accidental hug that night had never happened, he still wouldn't have forgotten her the next time they met. From the beginning, she had been someone special to him. Adrian Liu tilted his head and looked down at her. "Yes." Summer Yu's heart pounded loudly. Holding her breath, she asked again, "Then what if I hadn't broken up with my ex-boyfriend?" The man frowned slightly and tightened his grip on her hand. After a moment of silence, he said quietly, "I don't know." Summer Yu immediately regretted asking. Why had she suddenly brought up that bastard Jason Zhou? She had completely ruined the atmosphere. Adrian Liu reached out and gently held her small chin, turning her face back toward the screen. "Didn't you say you wanted to watch this movie? Focus on the movie. Stop thinking about those impossible hypotheticals." Oh. By the time the movie ended and they returned to the hotel, it was already almost midnight. Adrian Lu walked her to the door of her room. Lowering his head slightly, he said, "Go in." Summer Yu looked up at him, then, "I'm going in." Adrian Lu nodded and released her hand. As soon as she stepped inside, she saw Clara sitting on the edge of the bed. Clara had probably heard the door open. She quickly looked over. Clara smiled knowingly. "You're back pretty early." "It's almost midnight," Summer Yu said. "Why aren't you asleep yet?" Summer Yu tossed her handbag onto the bed and started searching for clothes to shower in. "We night owls like us?" Clara laughed. "How could we sleep before 1?" But then Clara noticed something. What Summer Yu had taken out wasn't pajamas. It was a dress. Clara narrowed her eyes suspiciously. "I'm going to take a shower first," Summer Yu said, "then I'll go over there. When the time comes, just lock the door." Summer Yu carried her clothes into the bathroom. More than 20 minutes later, under Clara's meaningful gaze, Summer Yu walked out of the room. She stepped into the elevator and nervously sent Adrian Lu a message. "Are you asleep yet?" Not yet, really?" "Did you already go to sleep?" he asked. "You have to wake up early tomorrow." Adrian Lu had just finished showering. He didn't feel sleepy yet, so he took his laptop out of his bag, planning to handle a few emails. He had just sat down and was waiting for the computer to start up when another message appeared in the chat. "Spring living, then open the door for me." Adrian Lu froze. By the time he reacted, he had already walked to the door. He opened it and stared intently at the girl standing outside. His voice turned hoarse. "You." Summer Yu was incredibly nervous, but she still stepped inside. Looking up at him, she said, "Didn't you say I should be the one to take the initiative? I just wanted to stay with you a little longer. So I came." Before she could finish speaking, a loud bang sounded behind her. The door slammed shut. The man pressed her against it and kissed her fiercely. Their last kiss had happened less than 4 hours ago. Summer Yu still hadn't fully adjusted to his intense, overwhelming kisses, but she remembered what she had just said. This time, she would be the one to take the initiative. She wrapped her arms tightly around his neck, standing on tiptoe as she tried to keep up with his rhythm, responding to him. Adrian Lu was clearly excited by her sudden boldness. Taking advantage of the moment, he bent down and lifted her into his arms. Summer Yu's heart immediately began racing wildly. Startled, she looked up. The man supported her with one arm, while his other hand held the back of her neck, pulling her closer as he continued kissing her. Then he turned around while holding her. The world spun for a moment. Summer Yu fell back onto the soft bed. Her heart hammered violently as she looked at Adrian Lu in confusion. Adrian Lu lowered himself onto the bed, bracing his arms above her. He could clearly see the nervousness in her eyes. Adrian Lu bent down and kissed her lips again. This time the kiss was gentle. Slowly, it moved from her lips down to her neck, and then to the soft spot behind her ear. Summer Yu's body trembled lightly. She grabbed his arm and whispered, "Adrian Lu." Adrian Lu buried his face briefly against her shoulder, letting out a breath. Then he pushed himself upright and lightly pinched her cheek. There was a faint, teasing smile in his eyes as he asked, "Are you sure you want to sleep here? You didn't finish what you were saying earlier." Summer Yu's face flushed bright red. Although she had mentally prepared herself a little, she was still extremely nervous. Lowering her eyes, she didn't dare look directly into his. She muttered softly, "Even if we sleep together, it doesn't mean we're going to do anything." Adrian Lu chuckled quietly. "I didn't plan to do anything either." Now Summer Yu had no idea what to say. Earlier, during their kiss, her dress had ridden up to her thighs, revealing her long, fair legs. Adrian Lu's gaze darkened slightly. He pulled the blanket over her to cover her legs. Then he sat back against the headboard of the bed. Summer, you blinked and looked at the laptop he had opened on the table earlier. Do you still have work to do? I was planning to deal with a few emails. He lowered his head and looked at her meaningfully. But now, I don't really have the mood anymore. The corners of Summer Yu's lips curved upward involuntarily. She opened her arms slightly, asking for a hug. Adrian Lu leaned over. Summer Yu wrapped her arms around his neck, her eyes sparkling as she looked at him. I just realized. I don't think you've actually said you like me yet. Although their relationship had begun in a rather unusual way, and she already knew he had fallen for her at first sight, she still wanted to hear those words from him. The man lowered his head, his tall nose gently brushed against hers as he chuckled softly. I like you. Summer Yu followed his example. She lifted her head and kissed the corner of his lips. I like you too. Adrian Lu's Adam's apple moved slightly. He let out a helpless sigh, straightened up, and gently ruffled her hair. Go to sleep first. I'll finish my emails and then sleep. Summer Yu gave a small hum, then she muttered quietly. Didn't you say you didn't have the mood anymore? That's exactly why I need to shift my attention. Adrian Lu gave her a crooked smile. So you should go to sleep first. Summer Yu immediately understood what he meant. Her face began heating up again. This kind of conversation, half straightforward, half ambiguous, was both embarrassing and strangely exciting. He picked up the phone she had dropped onto the bed and placed it on the bedside table. Then he turned off all the lights, leaving only the small desk lamp glowing softly. Just as he stood up, he suddenly felt his hand being held. Adrian Lu turned his head, his gaze dropped to the small, fair hand gripping his. Then he looked toward the girl lying on the bed. She had pulled the blanket up, covering half of her face. In the dim lighting, Summer Yu seemed a little bolder. Holding his hand, she whispered softly, I never said. It wasn't allowed. Adrian Lu took a deep breath. In a low voice, he asked, what time do you have to wake up tomorrow? 8. Adrian Lu gently removed her hand and tucked it back under the blanket. His gaze was deep and gentle. Next time. I'm afraid you won't be able to get up tomorrow and will blame me. Summer Yu opened her mouth, about to say something, but he cut her off first. Stop talking. Go to sleep. Summer Yu rolled her eyes slightly, pressing her lips together. She stayed silent. The man leaned down and kissed her lips softly. Good night. After saying that, he turned around and walked away. Summer Yu lay in bed and secretly watched him for a while. After a moment, she suddenly remembered something. She grabbed her phone and sent him a message. Spring Living, boyfriend, how old are you this year? The phone on the table vibrated. Adrian Lu glanced at it, smiled slightly, and picked it up to reply, 28. My birthday is January 18th. It already passed. Summer Yu murmured quietly, 4 years older than me. Hearing her voice, Adrian Lu looked up toward the bed. Stop playing with your phone and go to sleep. You're not going to ask when my birthday is? June 19th. Summer Yu was startled. She immediately sat up, hugging the blanket. How do you know that? The lighting near her bed was dim. She couldn't see his expression clearly, although the light near his desk was bright. Summer Yu wasn't wearing her glasses tonight, so she couldn't see him clearly either. Last time when you sprained your ankle, Adrian Lu said casually, leaning back in his chair. When I helped you get your number at the hospital, I saw it. He looked at her. Any other questions? No, Summer Yu coughed lightly. My sleeping posture might not look very nice. So? Adrian Lu chuckled softly. Summer you slowly lay back down, staring at the dark ceiling. Her voice sounded weak. I can't fall asleep. The room fell quiet for a moment. Then, click, the sound of the laptop closing. Footsteps approached. Adrian Lu lifted the blanket and lay down beside her. He pulled her into his arms and sighed. I'll sleep with you. This was the first time Summer Yu had ever shared a bed with a man. She had thought she would be too nervous to fall asleep. His arm beneath her head felt stiff. To be honest, being held like this by someone else felt unfamiliar, and not entirely comfortable. Yet somehow, little by little, she drifted into sleep. The next morning, the alarm rang. Summer Yu struggled to crawl out of bed. She hadn't even done anything last night, yet she still felt strangely tired. Fortunately, Adrian Lu had been rational enough to let her off. Adrian Lu had already woken up and changed clothes at some point. Today he was dressed very casually, black cargo pants, a simple black t-shirt. Yesterday's white shirt and dress pants had drawn too much attention. At the comic exhibition, this outfit still made him look handsome, just not overly conspicuous. When he saw her struggling to sit up, he curved his lips slightly. Good morning. Summer Yu sat there for a few seconds before finally turning off the alarm. Looking at Adrian Lu, she replied, Good morning. She climbed out of bed and straightened her slightly wrinkled dress. Picking up her phone, she said, I'll go downstairs to change clothes. Then I'll come upstairs to find you later. Adrian Lu nodded and walked her to the door. When Summer Yu returned to the room, her editor looked at her with a bright smile, scanning her up and down before even circling around her with a puzzled expression. Oh. You seem to be in great spirits, Clara said teasingly. I thought you wouldn't even be able to get out of bed today. Move aside, move aside. Summer Yu felt a little embarrassed. We didn't do anything. Clara looked genuinely surprised, and he actually managed to hold back. Summer Yu quickly changed the subject. Hurry up and change your clothes and put on makeup. It wouldn't be good if we arrive late. After changing clothes and putting on makeup as quickly as possible, Summer Yu went upstairs to look for Adrian Lu. She took a black mask out of her bag and handed it to him. Adrian Lu accepted it and put it on, then lowered his head to look at her. Like this? Summer Yu stared at his face for a moment and realized that a mask simply couldn't seal away the charm of a handsome man. In fact, it only added a mysterious aura. After thinking for a moment, she pulled out another item from her bag, a black bucket hat. I bought this hat before, but it was too big for me. It should fit you. Too big for you? Adrian Lu said calmly. You didn't buy it for someone else? I'm telling the truth. Summer Yu suppressed a laugh and gestured for him to lower his head. I don't keep anything from my ex-boyfriend anymore. Adrian Lu chuckled softly and lowered his head cooperatively. Summer Yu placed the hat on his head. Suddenly she remembered something. I think I never told you why I hugged the wrong person that night. Adrian Lu had never asked before because he didn't want to hear details about her former relationship. Things like you looked a little like him were not words he wanted to hear. But now that she had brought it up, he casually asked, Why? The white coat you wore that night looked very similar to the birthday gift I gave him. Summer Yu noticed that his expression turned colder. She carefully continued, That night he came to return my things. And to break up. Adrian Lu lowered his eyes and responded coldly, Oh. When I get back, I'll throw that coat away. Don't throw it away. What did the clothes do wrong? Summer Yu hadn't expected him to get jealous, much less say something so resentful. She cupped his face with both hands and said seriously, After he returned it, I immediately returned the coat as well. And besides, I only thought it looked similar. I wasn't wearing my glasses that night, so I couldn't even see clearly whether it was the same model. Also, that coat cost several thousand yuan. How could you just throw it away like that? With the hat and mask on, Adrian Lu's eyes looked especially cold. He narrowed them slightly. So it was really just a similar coat? Of course. He's a scumbag. Why would I still miss him? Summer Yu assured him, you're much more handsome than him. Her fingertips brushed the hair behind his ear. It felt slightly damp. She touched it again and asked suspiciously, did you wash your hair this morning? When she woke up earlier, she wasn't wearing glasses, so she hadn't noticed that his hair was still wet. Adrian Lu replied calmly, I took a shower. Summer Yu blinked, then smiled slyly. It wasn't a cold shower, was it? Adrian Lu's expression stiffened. He pressed the screen of his phone and held it in front of her, glancing at her calmly with a faint smile at the corner of his lips. Are you sure you want to discuss this right now? Summer Yu glanced at the time, quickly slung her bag over her shoulder, grabbed his hand, and turned to leave. Hurry, hurry. If we're late, it won't look good. The comic exhibition was still extremely crowded. Summer Yu and Adrian Lu practically had to squeeze through the crowd to enter. Readers had already lined up in a long queue. As soon as Summer Yu arrived, she sat down in her seat, greeted the readers, and lowered her head to start signing autographs. Adrian Lu was dressed very simply, wearing a mask and a hat. Although his face couldn't be clearly seen, his figure and aura were far too outstanding. When he pushed the suitcase and walked into the booth with Summer Yu, everyone's attention immediately shifted to him. Which cosplayer is that? Cosplayer? What are you talking about? I think he's Madame Sanxia's boyfriend. Haven't you checked the super topic? Yesterday someone secretly took a photo and posted it there. He's so handsome. Where? Why didn't I see it? I think it was deleted. Maybe they felt it wasn't right to take photos secretly. Adrian Lu sat down on the empty chair in the back row. He didn't hear the whispers of the crowd, but Summer Yu heard everything. Her head began to ache slightly. I knew this would happen. Who told my boyfriend to be so handsome? After a while, a bold reader smiled and asked, Madam, who is the handsome guy sitting behind you? He's wearing a mask, Summer Yu replied while finishing a signature and handing the comic back to the girl. How do you know he's handsome? He must be handsome. Several readers behind her also leaned forward, asking with obvious curiosity, who is he? It feels like he's been watching you the whole time. He keeps looking at you. Watching me the whole time? Summer Yu couldn't help but turn around. The chair was a little low, so Adrian Lu leaned lazily against the backrest. His long legs were stretched slightly apart, under the brim of his hat. His deep eyes looked gentle and focused. He really was looking at her. The corner of her lips lifted. She turned back to face the curious girls. Suddenly, she didn't feel like hiding it anymore. With a soft smile, she said, a family member came with me to the signing event. Then she raised her index finger to her lips. Shoo, don't keep looking at him. He'll get shy and run away. But saying that only made more people look at him. At 12:30, Summer Yu's book signing still hadn't finished. Adrian Lu could no longer stay. From here to the airport would take almost an hour, not including traffic. He stood up and walked behind her. Gently, he rubbed the top of her head and said softly, I have to go now. Summer Yu looked up. Huh? She stared at him for a few seconds before lowering her voice, then. See you at home. She couldn't leave. She couldn't even walk him out. A hint of a smile appeared in Adrian Lu's eyes. He gave a soft then he said nothing more, turned around, and pushed his suitcase away. When he was sitting down earlier, people only noticed that his legs were long. But once he stood up, it became even more obvious. Someone turned to look at his back and exclaimed, "Madam, your boyfriend is so tall. He must be around 190 centimeters, right?" "Probably." Summeryu quietly withdrew her gaze. Actually, she didn't even know how tall Adrian Liu really was. After the signing event ended, Summeryu went to have dinner with the organizers and several other comic artists. Along the way, she was teased repeatedly. Who brings their family member to a book signing? Someone joked. This is the first time I've ever seen that. After facing the teasing of readers all morning, Summeryu had already become immune to it. Now she could respond without blushing or feeling her heart race. "Next time, you can all bring someone along too," she replied casually, just as she finished speaking. Her phone vibrated. A message from Adrian Liu appeared. He said he had already boarded the plane. Summeryu pulled Clara's sleeve and lowered her head to reply, "I just finished and I'm about to go eat with everyone." Then she added another message, "You sat behind me the entire morning. Now everyone knows that when I go to sign books, I bring my family member along." Adrian Liu replied, "If I have time next time, I'll go with you again." What should she do? They had only just separated, yet Summeryu already started to miss him. That evening, after the dinner party ended, Adrian Liu and Victor Zhuo were waiting for a driver in front of a club. Victor nudged Adrian's shoulder. "So yesterday afternoon you rushed all the way to Guangzhou. What for?" Adrian Liu looked ahead calmly. "To see my girlfriend." "That fast?" Victor Zhuo laughed. He was genuinely happy for him. Turning his head, he added, "Bring her out for dinner sometime. Everyone is really curious about the girl you chased for the first time." Adrian Liu paused for a moment before replying, "I'll ask her." The driver arrived and the car set off. Adrian Liu leaned back lazily against the seat and sent a message to Summeryu, "Can I call you?" Half a minute later, his phone rang. Adrian Liu smiled and answered, "Are you getting ready to sleep?" "Not yet," Summeryu replied, "I'm packing my things." She was squatting beside her suitcase. Everyone suddenly decided to go to Hong Kong for 2 days. "Luckily, my travel permit hasn't expired yet." "Going back in 2 days?" Adrian Liu asked. Actually, she wanted to go home right now." She asked him, "Are you home yet?" "Still on the way." "Driving yourself?" "No. I had a bit of alcohol, so I called a driver." "Oh." Adrian Liu looked out the car window for a moment, then asked, "When you come back, do you want to have dinner with my friends?" Summeryu paused briefly. "Your company partners?" "The one who lent you the wheelchair," Adrian Liu explained. "Oh. His girlfriend will be there too. And there are 2 other close friends." Afraid she might feel awkward, Adrian Liu added, "They're just curious about what kind of girl the first woman I ever pursued looks like. If you don't want to go now, we can arrange it another time. No need to wait." Summeryu sat down on the bed. At first she felt a little nervous, but then she thought about how quickly their relationship had progressed, almost like a rocket. Meeting his friends didn't seem like such a big deal after all. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to Love Stories with Lisa for more stories. Thank you so much.